Hello and welcome to EduCurious. Today's special guest is Deanna Joyner. She is an ELA teacher at a local middle school, but she's had a well-rounded life in education. Her career has taken her many different places, so I am delighted and thrilled to have Deanna on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for doing this. I want to hear all about it. What brought you to this area? Tell me about your career journey.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Lake West, Florida. I've taught in Florida and in Arizona. Lived out in Arizona. They found me and I went out. I took the journey to go out. I learned so much more when I was in Arizona. Everything kind of meshed together. Being home, I knew what I knew, but I really didn't know where I was until I went to another territory and began to use that skill set, those strategies, and just all around those transferable skills and learning new things about different cultures. It was a journey and it still is a journey. I'm still learning. I still feel that with the diversity that we have here, the influx of different groups in Florida, especially Polk County, that I'm still in that pause of learning different cultures and teaching different ethnicities and demographics of children. So I've been all over the place. So I'm a little melting pot.
You mentioned that you're still learning, and I liken you to a lifelong learner. Tell me
Mhm.
about how you manage to balance. You've got higher ed, like you've gone back to school as an adult with kids in tow. Tell me how you made that happen.
Well, it's all about your goals, well, I don't like to say goals. I like to say objectives, your targets, what you want out of life, where you want to be, and just a roadmap to how you're going to get there. And I say this, a vision without effort is an illusion. So I'm glad I didn't give myself false hope. I'm glad I pushed myself. But one of the things that kept me going and what kept me moving forward was looking at my own children. I have five, my own children, and looking to say, where are you going to be in this amount of years? How are you going to get there? And that's the same way I look at my classroom. This is where you all are. This is where you need to be within such a particular amount of time. What's your roadmap? And that roadmap consists of a lot of time management strategies when you're in the zone and you're striving for excellence. And it is a target of where you need to be, whether it's excellence in business, excellence in education, excellence in medicine. You have to have that roadmap and you got to follow it. And that's kind of how I got to where I was. Now, there's a lot of times my babies went to school with me. They had to be on the campus with me. And I went to a small school and we just went from there. I just went from there and I just kept going. Once I realized I achieved my associates, then I did it again with my bachelor's and then I did it again with my master's.
And you mentioned how you apply real life scenarios into your classroom. Tell me a little bit about how you lead a well managed classroom. How do you set that up? Because that's critical in any learning environment.
I look at being at school as my home. So I have two homes, but wrapped in one. Relationships are big. They are the foundation of engagement, the foundation of a teacher's framework, the foundation of everything in your classroom. Building relationships, setting boundaries, and also you knowing the boundaries with your students as well. So I build relationships with them. Sometimes it takes a while to get that onion. Some of them are onions to get it peeled back because they have different layers, but setting boundaries and encouraging them even the more. So I take about 21 days at the beginning of school to build relationships. And I take those 21 days, I'm really involved with my kids. And it's especially with middle school, because this is something that I experienced. A lot of I won't say anxiety, but high levels of energy were there and they were nervous. And I just kind of put myself in their shoes to if, like when I moved to Arizona. So I kind of used that. And even going into a new school, I thought about that. I used that and I used even starting a new job just in another field. I've always put myself in their shoes. And I always think, what if they are my pathologist when I pass away? What if they're my neurologist? What if they're even for my grandchildren? So I want to give them that space in the relationship to know that I'm here for you, but we're going to work. You're going to learn and I'm going to stretch you because I pursue excellence. So building that relationship with them, that's the foundation. And that's how I get my kids to really be engaged and involved in everything that we're doing.
What have been some key philosophies that you have taken, harnessed, and used in your classroom?
Know when to speak, know when to encourage, know when to just, Your presence is needed and know when to let things go. And what I mean by let things go is with building relationships, there are ups and downs. Sometimes there's a lot of downs, especially when you're disciplined. When there's discipline and structure, there's a lot of downs. I've learned not to bring back up the past. So I treat my students just like they're my kids. Now, if it's a learning thing and we need to revisit, like, hey, this is what happened before. We don't want to bring that up again. So it's a new slate. Let's move forward. I've learned to do that just through parenting. I have on a lot of coats. I parent, I teach. I'm the doctor. I'm everything in the classroom, but I know which lane to operate out of. I know which channel of operation is needed just by discernment, just by discernment.
How do you like to handle discipline within your classroom?
Well, with discipline in my classroom, so the first thing, I have expectations and rules. Those are two different entities. And I make sure that they understand those expectations first. And then the rules. So the expectation is, this is what I expect in class. And this is what I expect for you, where I need for you to be in all areas, emotionally, socially, and mentally. If there's an issue, come talk to me before class begins. If you don't want to talk before class begins, put your thumb up or put a pencil down. That way I know we need to talk at some point. When there's defiance or challenging issues, I have learned to go and stand beside that student while I'm still teaching. And then when there's a break and kids are engaged in a group, which it's always in my class, I try to figure out where the foundation of the trigger. And a lot of times I'm successful, there's times I'm not. So it balances. And I've had where it gets out of hand, and then I just follow the commands and the policies that's in place at the school, that the school and the district implements. And we go from there. Once that happens, because I don't like to take it out of my hands, because I like to talk through things to let them know, hey, if you keep this behavior or if you keep doing this, it's all a behavior. If it becomes a pattern in real life, this is exactly what happens. And I always have an example that I can give them. I always. And it sticks for a minute, but then you can see another behavior that channels from the behavior that happened in the beginning. And I use that. I'm not always soft. Most of the times I am, but when there's certain discipline levels require just a little hardness, I'm there, but I've learned how to balance it out. Being in elementary and middle school. So I've learned how to balance the approach out with, because everybody's not the same. Every student is not the same.
What would you say you use as your communication style?
I'm very open, very transparent. I put on the mother coat, even though I'm still a teacher. And depending on how my students are postured in their seat, that's the approach I use. If they're sitting up, I can tell we need to be face to face. If they're slouched, I come to the side real soft and we build from there.
So you're saying a lot of your communication is actually not verbal. It's positional. It is by your proximity. Where did you learn these skills?
With my own children. And I've learned that you just have to choose which direction you want to go and the response, so that they understand that it's a safe place and not a place of always being disciplined. It's a disciplined and structured place, but it's a difference when they understand it is safe. So I learned that with my kids and with them acting out. I was like, wait, whoa. I didn't expect that. What was the trigger with that? And then me developing as an adult as well.
How do you integrate good communication with parents of your students?
I really like to be face to face, but I have a lot on the phone. And most of them, I build relationships from the first time that I meet them. And then I try my best to keep in contact, because I have a lot more. But in the past, I try my best to keep in contact at least either weekly or every other week with something positive. And then if there's a challenge, or if I see something that may be a trigger, we go ahead and we talk it out. And I ask what they're using at home, just kind of the basic things, as if I was talking to one of my own friends.
What have been some major challenges along the way in education? What do you find that you have successfully overcome, but at that moment it was just so difficult?
One of my challenges, and I'll speak when I was in Arizona, was being able to switch and grab hold to the culture of the school that I was at because that was culture shock to me. And I had the experience, but not with the classroom. Like 98% of my population was Hispanic. So that was a challenge because some kids spoke only um, Spanish. Then I had probably about 5 that spoke both. So I had to learn. I was stretched as an individual and as an educator to learn more strategies than what I had already been using. So that was a challenge for me because I spent like 12 to 14-hour days in my classroom digging up strategies, pulling up things and creating drawings. I had to really, really use my resources of the team that I was around to have resources so that my kids can use and that I can utilize while I was teaching. So that was one strategy. Another one was being used to using multiple resources to teach. Because I would use two, but when you have a heavily Hispanic population, the differentiation, you have to have it to where you can meet every learner, and every learner is not the same. Every learner's not the same. Every learner's not there. And I had to really, really pull it out. And I struggled like the first year, but we did well. But I struggled mentally, physically, emotionally. I struggled because I had never had to work as hard as I did.
So, what advice would you have to a teacher that is going into an environment that is unfamiliar to them with students that are a different population than what they're used to?
Be willing to work hard. Be willing to be flexible. Be willing to be willing. Work until it works. Work until it works. When you work until it works, that means you are giving it all you have. Be consistent. Be consistent. Be consistent. If you need to change your rhythm, but not a big change. Being consistent in your classroom brings forth lucrative results, relationships wise, academic wise, behavior wise, you name it, it brings forth results.
So, on the flip side of the challenges, what do you feel like you bring to the table and that are some of your greatest assets, or you really get to unlock your passion in the classroom? What areas do you feel like you excel?
So, one of my strengths, just one that I can speak on right now, is building relationships with children. My belief is once you clasp their hearts, you have their minds.
Are there tips that you use in addition to taking those 21 days at the beginning? Some go to methods that you know are tried and true that work for cultivating relationships at the beginning?
Yes, the approach. There's no one single approach. What works for one student, student A, student B, may not be for C through G, and then L through N may have to have something different. But you have to be flexible and you have to have the heart to do the work. It's a lot of work, but you got to have the heart. It's just like preparing for a lesson a week ahead of time. You make sure you have your resources because you have to have your resources when you're building relationships. Make sure that you are in a sound place mentally and from your heart, and make sure that you are willing to work even beyond with the challenging ones and with the ones that do kind of pull away from you that don't want to be bothered. So just make sure you're ready to work on those things. And when you see that there's pointers that's pointing back to you, maybe that's not something that you need to do. Because a lot of times with building relationships, to me, it's a mirror for me to see what's left in me that I need to rid of, or what's left in me what's in me that's been lying dormant that I need to spring forth because I have this particular baby and maybe I need to sharpen that skill. So when building relationships, I say it reflects back to you. So if you're not ready to put the work in, if you're not ready to be transparent, and if you're not ready to be called out, because children do call you out, you gotta be ready for that. You gotta have tough skin. But the foundation, the main point is what I'm trying to get to is be ready to have a reflection for you so that you can iron out whatever needs to be ironed out and give those babies the pure you.
So, before you got to education, you had different careers, different jobs. What called you to education, and really, how did you get started?
Well, Dr. Damian Moses, God bless him. I was subbing a science class and I just did it on Fridays because I said I'm just doing it to make some extra money. And he walked in and he said, Joyner, this is where you're supposed to be. And I said, oh, no, sir. No, sir. No, 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 no. Then I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the children, let me say, with the children. So I kind of went around to the different schools within our district and I subbed and I landed my feet in elementary and I truly fell in love. I did. I fell in love and I put in my my head said, parents drop their children off to us. They expect for them to be safe. They expect for them to be treated fairly. They expect for them to have the best of the best. And they expect for them to learn. And I said, what can I lose? Because that's what I expect for me in a relationship, just whether it doesn't matter what type of relationship, but that's what I expect. And I was able to give that pureness of love and drive from there.
So, is your background degree in something completely different, or did you have some educational classes? Tell me about that part.
I graduated from Weber International with my associates and bachelor's. My AS is in business management with a minor in management. My bachelor's is in business administration with a minor in corporate communication. And then my master's is in management and leadership from Webster University with a minor in HR development. I'm a business background, but I came to the other side and fell in love.
What business skills have you applied directly? What are transferable classes that you're like, I'm so glad I did this business degree because it's applicable in a classroom?
So when we have engagement points before class start, I always talk about business, and I always talk about how they could create, my students can create, especially middle school, your own business. Most of them, their parents do have it. And I told them that you can study this and work in this area and blend them together. And you have the best of both worlds. And that's how we kind of start like our conversation before class. But another thing that I do, if we have a lesson and it could be about history or science, I could blend in, maybe talk about something with Maslow, because you learn that deeply in business, or talk about just the steps of forming a business and what it takes to get to where you need. We talk about goals and objectives. And I just kind of blend it in and not go too deep, but I induce their proclivity to think, this ain't all I got to, I could do something else. And so it sparks so much within my kids when I do that.
So, using the authentic learning where they're like, okay, this is applicable. That's why I want to learn it. This makes sense.
Yes.
Well, can you talk us through the process of going from a background that's not an education and then becoming a bona fide certified educator?
Yes. Well, my journey, I have the degrees, but coming over to the education side, you have to line yourself up with what's required for education. So I took my test, my subject area test. I already had a master's, so I didn't have to take the general knowledge because my master's fulfilled that. And my professionals, I went and took that. Then I took my classes for education at Florida Southern. With my experience, the years that I've taught, because it's been a while, a long time, and with learning at Florida Southern, that opened my knowledge realm to a different level when it came to education. And I truly understand why it is really needed. You can't just be in a teaching environment and not have what you need, because there are components that are very important that every educator needs, and you only learn that on the education side. So taking the courses, getting certified, and taking the courses that help you. And another thing that I would suggest and put a cap on is being in RIMS, being resourceful for yourself so that you are in the community of educators and not just sitting in your classroom for year after year, not investing into yourself so that you can become better. Don't wait on the school district to give you PD. Pay for PD for yourself, because that's what I do. I invest in myself. And I will take myself at least once a year or once every other year to where I'm around masterful educators to where I can learn off of them. And you can learn off of the teachers that are in your pod, your district. Number one is getting the alignment and getting certified according to your state. Number two is being resourceful for yourself, investing in yourself. Because I don't think that I just know that I wouldn't be where I am if I had not invested in myself, been resourceful, listened to have been coachable, and putting myself in rooms to where I can learn from masterful teachers.
Tell us a little bit about some of your favorite PD opportunities or some of the resources that you're subscribed to or that you stay current and relevant in to make sure that you are plugged in, learning, and always having something to give.
John Hattie. I went to John Hattie's Visible Learner Conference about a year ago. One thing that stuck out to me is having an effective framework in your classroom. Whatever you teach, you have to have your anticipatory set. And if your anticipatory set, if it takes longer, if you could break your anticipatory set up over the course of you every time you introduce a lesson, it helps your students build and build and build and build. And that helps them to master, which leads you into a highly structured, effective educator as well. And following along with that framework, it helps even the more. And I've learned that and I've stuck with that and I live by it. I live by it.
Growing up in the Lake Wales area, are there any teachers that you had K through 12 that really made a difference in your life growing up?
Two, Mr. Hicks, he is still teaching to this day. I would get sent in his classroom by Miss Batman when we were horrible. I went to Spook Hill. And then Mrs. Kirkland, well, it's three, Miss Kirkland and Miss Bess. They taught us how to be ladies and not be loud, but present. And we were a very rambunctious group in 93 at the high school. But Mr. Hicks dealt with us. He loved us. We were wild in elementary. Miss Batman didn't cut. She was just straightforward. We would go over there just to be over there. And I would just love being in his classroom. And he still teaches to this day.
So, if you could go back to when you were probably high school age and you're kind of thinking about career choices, do you have any advice for the younger you?
Yes, follow your dreams no matter what it looks like. Follow your dreams no matter what it looks like. Follow your dreams. And don't be afraid to dream big.
So, what does it look like if you could have it just the way you want in the next 5 years? What are your objectives?
Well, in the next 5 years, I do have a desire to be in leadership, whether it's AP, principal, vice superintendent, whatever it looks like. That's where I would love to be. Even if it's on a board to where you am guiding or advising teachers on how to effectively teach without being burnt out or how to build relationships with students, with families, you name it, anything, or building curriculum, creating curriculum, because I have experience in that. um, to make not to make easy teaching, because you have to be honest, there's nothing easy about teaching, but to how um, to adorn it and to situate your mindset and your physical being on how to effectively implement it without burning yourself out. And so whatever leadership looks like in education for me, that's where I kind of see myself in the next 5 years.
Do you have thoughts on what you would do to help reduce teacher burnout?
Yeah, I have thoughts. Right now, I am creating a free teacher workshop. It'll be in person and then it'll be online to how to look at your whole year and create it's spiral, but you'll be teaching the components while of the subject area or areas that you're teaching for K through 6 while you meeting the state standards and the mission and vision of your district. So you got to be in a space to where you are not afraid to work. You got to be in that space to where you're not afraid to work. And they may look like getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm one of those people. You got to have the heart for it, the mindset, and the willpower. So let's say, for instance, let's just say ELA, and we're going to take and you can always integrate. We'll take central idea and details. Remember, I talked about the anticipatory set. You want to break the first day, like I'll just look at it Monday through Friday. Most teachers do the anticipatory set on Monday and then they kind of leave it alone. I don't look at it on Monday. I look at it on Monday, but I'm teaching it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's a review. And if I need to, some teachers don't have the flexibility because they have so many minutes to do what they need to do. But I make sure that I'm reviewing the anticipatory set. Inside that anticipatory set, you are teaching your students the standard. So they know what that standard is. They probably can give you the numbers to the standard, but you're teaching that standard. And every time you open up your lesson, you're hitting it. Then you're allowing your students to work hands-on, verbally or hands-on with that particular standard. This is just a short version. In groups so that you can assess without pointing out throughout the classroom. You can assess who's getting it and where you need to take your lesson, the next level of taking your lesson. Inside of that, you blend them together in pods to where their ability group, where they're with kids who are a little bit higher, somebody may be mid or no, just coming up. So I do that. I make sure I do all that. After that, we close it out with an exit ticket. At the end of the day, you're going to look, you get them to tell the truth, which you already know by observation and looking at your notes. At the end of the day, you are preparing for the next thing. So it's a spiral, just in short, it's a spiral review, but you're still teaching the standard. Now, when you look at if they have everything, if they're at, you just got a gauge of 70%, you can implement science. You can implement math without them even knowing it. Somebody's going to figure it out. But if you start out like that, it's going to be too much. But as you go, you're making it more rigorous. Not just now you're hitting more than one standard, you're hitting multiple and you're integrating and you build from that. And at the end, it's just one thing I would have them to either write out or type out. And I did it with third grade, what they have learned over the course of the week. And they can take their exit tickets Monday through Thursday, and on Friday, they compile it together, which creates a summary. And then they will have the insight and the mental review of all that they learned once they begin to type. And you have to give them that space to be honest and truthful. And I take the time to do it. When you read all of those, you're going to make a pile of each one. Who reached it, who didn't reach it, who's getting there. And that is where I form my groups. And I start pulling, or I put them in a pod to where when I'm walking around, I said, hey, this is what I read and I saw this, blah, blah, blah. And I will call each student out and it does something to them when you say their name. They say, oh, you really read it? Yes. And this is what I want to talk about. Now tell me a little bit more. That's where you get that. And then you take it to the next level, which is a higher dimension. And then you keep building from there. Even if you go to another standard, you still can build on top of the previous standard that you've taught already. So it's a lot. It's a method to my madness, but it works.
How are your plans for getting together and providing these workshops with other educators to impart your knowledge? Like, what does that part look like?
We would have, I'll just say 7 parts to where we meet on a Saturday where I'm not invading anybody's regular work week or family outing or anything of that on a Saturday. And we would break each component down for 4 hours. We would just break it down. And then and then every Saturday we would add each component to the next component. And then we've created the entire circumference of teaching and learning. And then the last Saturday, we will have a play and go where we'll run through it so where they can see it. Because most teachers, when you get PD, you're not able to see it. It's just given to you. And then I would use the teachers to implement. And we're it's a no judge zone. No judge zone. Only feedback we get is that you can give is, hey, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to use it. I love it. I marry it and I buy it. That's what we're going to use. It's no, I wouldn't do that. No, that's not the thing because we're not in everybody's classroom. And the climate of everyone's classroom is totally different. So if that teacher says, if I could skip over this part, not the anticipatory part, and not the part where you're steady building on standards, because that's exactly how our standards are. They're building on top of each other. Not that part, but if I could skip the exit ticket and get them to write a journal, then I will do that. At the end of the day, I'll let them journal because that may not work for high school because high school may say exit tickets is for elementary. Can we journal? And then you have a digital journal.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about curriculum, what curriculum you're familiar with, where you see curriculum going, the importance of curriculum, just your thoughts all around curriculum within education.
I love Top Score. I love Go Math and Saxon. So I like blended stuff. And I don't like to stick to one curricula. I like to blend. And that teaches me that there's more to what's inside of this one, and this one. I like to blend. Anytime curriculum was placed in my hands, I've always had a PD by that district or that school, which is the district. Now, what you take from that PD and what you learn and implement in your classroom, that's on you. But what you also become resourceful is that digging a little bit deeper because there's always levels to where there's no clarity, where you don't get it. So I can't say I've sat in a PD, oh yeah, I've got it. No, 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 no. I've sat in a PD and I have been boggled or confused, like, oh, how are we going to do this? What does that look like? And when you're in PDs as an educator, most educators are visual, especially when you're in PD. We do not get to see the full circumference or the full comprehensive plan of what they are giving to the school district. It's usually boom, bada bing, boom, 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 boom. We need to see this. It's not, this is what you do for day one. This is day 2, day 3, day 4. So pulling that and pulling from there and you being resourceful is enough all by itself. So you have to put in the work to clarify your own understanding and use the resources from that PD, because usually when there's someone that comes and does a PD, they give you their contact information. So before you contact them, make sure you've laid it out. You've done your part, your due diligence to understand the curriculum first. And then you go to being resourceful. YouTube, Google Scholar, somebody's written something on it, just different places to where you can find information on that particular curriculum. And what you will find, if you're successful in your research, you will find that somebody has already created something for teachers or something for a student, or they've written a paper on it, or they've written their review on it. And you can just pull from there. And then that'll lead you to other places without confusing yourself. But you have to be resourceful for yourself.
Sometimes I hear two schools of thought on it, and it usually depends on if you're from the educational world or from like a business background or HR or something. And one is, I love using teacher made curriculum because it's so applicable to my children. Or the school of thought is, we need people that have research, done all of the background stuff, follow learning pedagogy, all of the different factors, and we need to have a curriculum as a guidepost. So do you have one way or the other?
When we look at curriculum, it's not going to fulfill everything. There's no curriculum that fulfills everything. We got to be resourceful enough to be able to put in the work to be resourceful, so that those resources that we acquire, we use in our classroom with fidelity. That brings forth the whole maturation of mastery. If you say you are who you are, you say you're an educator, you know, oh, you know reading, you know math, you're a mathematician. You're taking what's given to you. You're utilizing that, but you're compounding that thing. You're building. You're not just building on their skill set, and you're not just teaching the content. You're transforming lives, because you cannot transform lives if yours have not been transformed. And what I mean by that, your lenses is at a different component, and you got this right. So now let's implement all of this. And it's a lot of work. And when I did it, my babies went up. They went up, and their communication went up. It just climbed and climbed. I was like, wait a minute, y'all smarter than me. So it takes a lot of work, you know, and I'm not afraid to do it, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of and it takes a reflection. It's almost like you're counseling you, but I'm just going to use my book, my little journal. This is your counselor. And you just have to go in, and it's up to you to be honest. Okay, I didn't do that right. Where is it? It's just like when the babies ask us for help. I don't understand this. Teachers have that. I don't understand this either, but we don't share it with others. So most will just keep going, and we're cutting off our rhythm, the flow of our rhythm. But once you are coachable and you can apply those transferable skills, you could take that curriculum and other curriculums, and you could take it to the next level. And what happens is you create your own without even knowing it. It's unpublished though. But you do, and that's what the babies need. They need more discipline. They need more. You're not just teaching, you're transforming lives. You are transforming lives. So if anybody thinks, oh, I just teach, well, okay, fine. I transform lives. So in order for lives to be transformed, there has to be a process.
What do you feel is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment is being a lifelong learner. And that's a continual thing. And listening to my babies versus my babies listening to me. That's passing the baton. And that's a lot in the classroom. There's still structure. There's still the dynamics of effective framework. There's still the dynamics of effective classroom management. Everything is there, but listening to them verbally and non-verbally. And getting to that point, it makes me a better person. It makes me become aware and conscious of how I approach, even though I have 140, every single baby, because I don't want them to have in their head when they're 51 years old and they see me, I remember this day. I remember you did this for this student, but you wouldn't do that for me. Or I remember you was wrong and I proved it right, and you didn't say, you know what, you're right. I got it wrong. I'm sorry. That's mind boggling. That's very powerful. So I have been wrong in the classroom. Yeah, I've been wrong in the classroom. And I've allowed my babies to speak their piece, like, okay, Miss Joyner, this is what I got. And you missed it right here. And I was like, oh, you're right. I did. Thanks for calling me out. They say, oh, it's all love. Or they say, oh, I got you. And that's how you have to say the same thing to them. And then when you do that, it makes them more receptive and aware of their mistake. Now they're more conscious to either slow it down or create a process of pattern to where you can get your answers right. Or not even just get your answers right, but how you can communicate how you got your answer.
Do you have any last final words of wisdom or parting thoughts?
Just be willing. Put yourself in their shoes. You're there to transform lives, not suppress a life, but transform. When you transform lives, your life is transformed as well.
I appreciate you coming on the show today. I learned a lot. I always love talking to you. So
Likewise.
thank you.
Thank
And whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just EduCurious, join the community as we explore various educational topics and learn from each other. We'll see you next time.